20 pesos per kilo na bigas. That's one of the things that people are really holding President-elect Bongbong Marcos to before he even takes office. Sabi niya kasi during the campaign period that that's really gonna be one of his priorities. But maybe the bigger question is, posible ba talaga kaya to? Especially at this time when oil prices are sky high and the war in Europe is dragging on. Well, let's break it down in this episode of Short Take. At the moment, the average price of regular milled rice is around 38 pesos a kilo. If you want well-milled rice, it can go up to as much as 41 pesos a kilo. So bringing it down to the 20-plus level is a huge task. Now, the Department of Agrarian Reform made headlines recently for saying that President-elect Marcos's plan is doable by early 2023. According to Agrarian Reform Secretary Bernie Cruz, this can be done through their mega farms concept. The idea is to consolidate the production of small and individual farms that are contiguous or, in Tagalog, magkakadikit, and make them into large commercial farms. So kunyari, may tig-isang hektar ang bawat magsasaka, they will pool these resources together so that they can produce more output, parang co-op or cooperative.
So ang nangyari po, pinaghati-hati natin itong mga commercial farms na to at binigay natin sa ating mga magsasaka dahil po social justice nga ang clamor noon. So bibigyan natin sila ng kapirasong lupa na sasakahin at yun po ay magkakaroon sila ng magandang buhay at ang kanilang pamilya. Pero nakalimutan po natin na commercial dapat ang production. At kailangan nating pakainin yung mahigit 100 milyon nating mga mamamayan. So, from tawag po namin is subsistence farming ang nangyari from commercial farming. So, ang pag-aaral po namin, kung gagawin natin itong tinatawag na mega farm, without consolidating yung land, no? Without consolidating the land again, we can consolidate yung production.
Sabi din ni Secretary Cruz, he thinks we can bring down the production cost of palay to about 7 pesos from the current 12 to 14 pesos.
Pero ang sinasabi ng lahat lagi is from 12 to 14 pesos ang cost of production. Pero mayroon po kaming eksperimento at ang nangyayari po, napababa namin ito ng 9 pesos. Pwede pang bumaba hanggang 7 pesos. At pag yan po ay nangyari sa mass production, kayang-kaya po natin yung 20 pesos. Mayroon po kami mga experimental na ginawa at naging successful naman po. Ang problema lang talaga natin, paano natin ito gagawin ng massive, no? Kailangan mag-pilot tayo ng malalaki. At yung viability nakita po namin na talagang kayang-kaya kung magtutulong-tulong po sa pamamagitan ng mga makabagong technology.
But, and this is the big but, Agriculture Secretary William Dar strongly disagrees.
I don't know where the Department of Agrarian Reform is coming. I want to understand them better. That's a very important statement I am making. Because from all angles, from all our numbers crunching here, it's not possible as early as that. It will take time. Of course, again, you have to subsidize the rice, to buy the rice, and give it at 20 pesos. That's the easiest, but can we afford it? Yung sinasabi nila na mega farms, we are now doing this in the department. We call this program Farm Clustering and Farm Consolidation. Bayanihan Agri-Clusters.
To be clear, Secretary Dar is not saying that 20 pesos a kilo rice is an impossible idea forever. What he's questioning is the timeline. After all, the experiment that Secretary Bernie Cruz was talking about was only done on a very small scale. Ibang usapan na yon if you're gonna try to scale it up to feed 100 million people, right? The truth is, President-elect Marcos's promise of 20 pesos rice couldn't have come at a worse time. Ang daming problema both globally and locally. For starters, Because of the prolonged war in Ukraine, supplies of basic commodities like wheat and fertilizers are restricted. And that's leading to what's known as food protectionism, wherein countries are stockpiling and limiting exports so that they don't run out of supplies themselves. Inuuna nila sarili nila, in other words.
This really is giving us so to speak, sleepless nights, because the Ukraine and Russia are global food producers. They have lots of surpluses that they market, and they also manufacture fertilizers. So ang dami po yung impacted. And so nakikita natin na countries are already starting to protect themselves by way of not already marketing their export products like before. So these are all signs that if countries like us do not prepare and act fast, we will be caught in this problem of food crisis.
In fact, Thailand and Vietnam are in talks right now about limiting their exports and raising prices on rice. If that happens, that's going to be very bad news for us.
You know, if you combine the two, we source out our rice, the one we are importing, about 85% from Vietnam, then 10% from Thailand, so 95%. If the two really, coalesce and will go higher price of tonnage per ton of rice, it will really impact us. But that's why we are broadening the sources of rice where we can buy, so that we will not be tied up with the Vietnam and Thailand alone. So you bring in the dimension of India, bring in the dimension of Pakistan. There you are, you can source from various sources.
Secondly, again, because of the ongoing war in Europe, fuel prices remain sky high. I'm sure lahat kayo naramdaman niyo yung sakit these past several months, right? This year alone, more than 30 pesos na ang dinagdag sa diesel per liter. For gasoline naman, more than 23 pesos per liter na ang tinaas. In this regard, we don't have much of a choice because the Philippines is a net oil importer, meaning we don't produce enough oil here to sustain our needs, which means we have to pay more to bring in the raw materials we need for agriculture. For example, we import all of our chemical fertilizers. But because transportation costs have been so high, many farmers have had to cut back on this, which in turn means bababa yung output. The DA has been looking into local sources of fertilizers, and also the University of the Philippines has begun developing biofertilizers. But at the moment, hindi pa nila kayang i-scale up ito, and so we still need imported chemical fertilizers.
A number of us former secretaries of the Department of Agriculture with a meeting with Secretary Dar. And he told us, and subsequently really also mentioned this in public, that we're facing a drop in palay production of about 1.1 million metric tons. That's roughly 660,000 tons of bigas, rice. And that would represent roughly about 15 days supply.
Third problem, climate change. We know naman the country gets hit by around 20 tropical cyclones a year. But this year, Pag-asa declared the onset of the rainy season a little bit earlier than usual, May 18 pa lang. Global warming has already changed seasonal patterns and agricultural output in other parts of the world, like the US, and it will no doubt further reduce the output of our farmlands and fisheries, which is why the DA has also been pushing to increase the buffer stock of rice, which, believe it or not, at the moment is only good for 7 days.
So this is where I'm coming in. Dagdagan natin yung buffer stocking capacity and capability ng NFA so that every 3 months they roll this over. Yung mga bigas ay ititinda sa merkado sa NFA retail outlets for 27 pesos. 25 for NFA, 2 pesos additional for the retailer. So you are giving cheaper rice to the poorest sector, poorest segment of our society, about 22 million of them.
In the very short term, experts say the only way you can bring down the average cost of rice to 20 pesos a kilo is to subsidize it. And of course, when we talk about subsidies, whether for fuel or for food, iisa lang naman panggagalingan yan, our taxes. So, how much will we need to make this dream of 20 peso rice possible?
So you can give this to the Filipinos at 20 pesos. Now, whether we have that money, of course, our national coffers would have to dictate that. But we are looking at as an aspiration, and we would like to believe that over a number of years, maybe 3 years, you have to lower the cost of producing a kilo of palay, which today, as a result of the Ukraine war, has increased the cost of producing a kilo of palay from 11.50 to now 14.80.
125 billion pesos minimum. Do you think we can afford this, considering our national debt is already at a record high of nearly 13 trillion pesos now? And anyway, economists say subsidies aren't the answer. In fact, this over-reliance on subsidies is the problem. Many years ago, we should have focused on increasing yield, not so much artificially pushing down the price of rice.
We may have missed our way over the decades. Maybe we were too much engrossed with the traditional programs, heavy on subsidies for the farmers, na instead of yung honest to goodness productivity growth. So halimbawa, yung ating rice yield ngayon is about 4 tons per hectare, is still below what is being achieved in competing countries like Vietnam.
So the job of the new agricultural chief is no joke. He or she will be confronted with a perfect storm of soaring oil prices, a weak global food supply, and weather disturbances. But the one thing they can't afford to do is let the price of rice get out of hand. Rice, or bigas, as we know, is a highly political issue in the Philippines.
But I still would like to, stress that it's very important that we keep rice, because it's a political food stuff, no? Pag walang bigas, medyo magkakarevolusyon, no? Sabi nga nila, no, medyo we did experience that, no? It was people really very agitated about it, no? So with that, careful management has to be done.
On the other hand, may key opportunity ang new agriculture secretary. Because of advances in technology, they can modernize this field and tap the private sector for investments, just like what China did over a decade ago.
Let us bring down those very high powered technologies, e-commerce opportunities. Ilagay natin sa agriculture. That's what China did in the last 10 years.
So the short answer is 20 pesos a kilo rice is possible kung pipilitin. But there are serious consequences. It's either we pay more taxes to subsidize it, or we import more, which will then come at the expense of the local farmers. Yun kasi ang basic concept ng free market economy. Nothing comes free, everything comes with a trade-off. So maybe the better question is, just how far is this new administration willing to go just to deliver on its campaign promise? I'm Regina Lay. Thanks for watching.